Welcome to my first ever YouTube video recording. My name is Jacomar. Hello everybody, nice to meet you. And what I'm going to be going over is Pile's Prefab editor for 7 Days to Die. This is the type of editor you would use if you wanted to make your own POI, is another name that people might know these by. But yeah, Prefab's buildings, generally speaking, build buildings in 7 Days to Die. You can make your own. So a tool like Pile's editor is pretty handy. We've all who've played 7 Days to Die know what it's like building large structures in game. Great for gameplay perspective, but when you want to build out something big and beautiful that you can kind of get into maybe your own custom random world generator, you kind of want to be able to build these out a little quicker, a little simpler, and maybe fix things without having to do a bunch of crazy stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff to it. But we just want to go over Pile's editor. So you can get Pile's Prefab editor on 7 Days to Die, the forums. There's a link to it. So 7 Days to Die PC, game modifications, modding tools, and the Prefab editor alpha. He's currently on version W. He doesn't have his post updated here for it. But you can go ahead and download the version that's shown here. He's got an updater in the tool. So go ahead and download what he has here, and when you have it downloaded, you're just going to get a zip file. I don't believe there's an installer, and you run it, either you extract that zip file and go ahead and fire it up. This is what it looks like when you've extracted that file you download, and you just run the zombie exe. Running the zombie exe gets you this. Welcome to Pile's editor. Start out with an unnamed prefab. If you look at the top left, it shows version 0.3W. On his latest version, I just updated it. If you go to extras and force update, you can get the latest version as well. I want to go over just some of the basics of his editor and some basic drawing functionality. So starting out with just kind of what we're looking at here. At the top left of the screen, we see Zombie V03W, the version of the editor tool. The name of the prefab that you're working in. I haven't really started a prefab, so I don't have a name yet. And then the coordinates where your mouse cursor either is or last was. So as I move my cursor around on the grid, you see that number change. Then you have the block that your cursor last was on, or wherever your cursor currently is. These are all error blocks currently. And then the ID of that block. So an error block, the block ID is 0. In his editor, you have a couple different groups up here. Select Navigate. We'll go over some of this in detail. You get the Edit tool. We'll go over that as well. And you have a General section. And we're really only going to go over one icon in here. Don't worry about the rest of this stuff. I don't even really use it myself. This is really just the basics. On the rest of the tool, we've got a top-down. We have different views of how we can look at our prefab. Top view, front view, and side view. So top view is if we're looking from the ceiling down. So maybe we're looking at the entire floor, or we're looking at the entire ceiling. We're not looking at just like the side of the building or whatever. Front view would be literally we're looking at the front door of the building. We see the front wall maybe of the building, or we can kind of step through layers and see like different slices coming from the front view perspective. Side view is basically the same as the front view, but now you're looking at the side of the building, and you can kind of step through the layers and kind of work your way through the building till you get to the other side of the building, the other side wall, and then out of your building if you have maybe your parking lot on the outside. So let's go ahead, and before we get too much further, let's go and start a new prefab. So we'll go up to File and at the top left and select New Prefab. And this is what we get. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do an outhouse. Simple little prefab here. Outhouse. Hold your breath. Nope, breath. And I'm pretty sure I want this to be a 5 wide, 5 long, and about 4 high outhouse. So that's how many vertical spaces in the height. So I'm going to click OK on this. And now I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the floor currently. So over here on the left-hand side in the top view, and each one of these front views, side views, they all have these same controls. You've got your layers that you can work through, and we'll get more to that. You have a zoom, so you can kind of zoom in and out, especially as your prefabs get big. That's going to be real handy. And then you have a rotation. I don't use that much because it messes with my orientation as I'm editing this stuff, so we're not really going to go into that. But zoom this back out so that the lines all look kind of the same. So we are wanting to create an outhouse. We're currently on layer 0, top view tab, and you can see up here there's a 0. If I hit these up and down arrows, I can navigate my way up and down the building. So I'm going to go up 1, and that might be actually, you know what? I do want this to be a little taller. So what I was originally thinking is there'd be an outhouse on the ground, there'd be walls, a ceiling. So I'm on the front view now. There'd be walls on the sides, ceiling on the top, and then I'd have toilets right on the ground. Actually, I think I want a foundation. I want like a wood foundation. And it's going to be a wood outhouse. Nothing fancy. But I need another row because I personally like to have 2 blocks, which is where your character will walk through. The block on the bottom is the feet of the character. Block above it is the head of the characters. They take up 2 blocks as the character moves through the game. I like to have an empty air block above the character. Maybe I'm going to put in lights, and just maybe I want the character to be able to jump and not have that weird like twist that you get in game. And then the ceiling above that. But I want a foundation now, so I need another row. So what I'm going to do is go over to the tabs on the right hand side. There's a number of tabs over here. Some of these might require different tutorials, but I'm going to be working with the tools tab just for a couple of features here, and we're going to do the insert row. So what I want to do is I want to insert one more row. I'm on my front view, and I want to make it 1 taller. Now if I do this on my top view, if I insert rows, I'm going to make it wider, or if I insert a column, I might make it longer, whatever the case may be, long, wide, however the case. But I want to increase the vertical height of my building. So I'm going to go to the front view. I could do it on the side view as well. I tend to just go to the front view just for the heck of it. I'm going to insert 1 row at the top right under the Tools tab. So where the Insert Rows button is, I'm going to put a number 1 for how many rows I want to insert. I'm going to insert this at row 0. What that means is I'm looking at my grid here. My mouse is kind of over it right now. And remember, at the very top of my screen, it shows it shows the coordinates of where my cursor is. So if I go to the very bottom row, I'm in the third column, but the first column is the first position of anywhere is going to be 0, 0, 0. So as I move to the second column on my list, or on my map here, it's going to go to column 1, as you can see in the top of my screen. Now if I go over to the middle, I'm in column 2. These are the columns. I'm traversing these strips here vertically. Now I want the row, these horizontal lines. So I'm going to insert a row at row 0. So as I go up, you'll see I go to 1 to row 2 to row 3. It's really my 4th row, but remember I always start at 0. So row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3. I want to insert a row at row 0. I want the floor to go deeper. So I'm going to go ahead 1 row at the top right under the Tools tab at row 0, and I'm going to insert a row. Now my building's 5 high. Great. So now you might think, okay, well, cool. We're looking at the front of the building. Let's lay the floor and let's put in the walls. That's great. But if I lay the floor and put in the walls, I'm going to end up doing, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have just that front 1 block deep laid. When I go to my top view, and here, let's show it real quick. We'll get into some of these editing stuff here in just a moment, but well, you kind of get an idea. So that'll be a bad block to use, but it doesn't really matter for this, I believe. So let's say I do, okay, I'm going to do my floor. Cool. I'm going to do a wall. Cool. I'm looking at the front, do a wall. This is my walls. There's my ceiling, and there's that, and there's that, and there's that, and there's a little doorway. I'll put a door in here eventually, and cool. I've got my building laid out. But now if I go to my top view, unfortunately what I've just done is I've only done 1 row of my floor, 1 row of my wall, and 1 row of my ceiling at the very top, layer 4. I've only done 1 row. I didn't really fill in the whole building. So what I tend to like to do is I'm going to go back to this front view here. Get it to move on the layers, so I'm right here, and I'm going to clear all these out, and we're going to do it just like this. Cool. So we clear all that out. I'm going to do this from the top view. I really like building from the top view. You notice it doesn't always update. Sometimes you'll have to do up and down on the layers, and it'll update with your last edit when you switch these front and top views. So I'm back in the top view. I'm on the floor. I want my foundation. There's a couple ways I can put this in. first way I can put that in is with just the edit tool. You can see over on the right hand side, I'm in the edit tab, and I've got these different fields and buttons that I can push. So simplest thing to do is just in the block ID, that's where you're going to choose, or you can do searches for what blocks you want to use. So I wanted a wood block, so I'll type wood block, all one word, and at the bottom I can see the blocks that match that. I know 220 wood block is just the generic non-upgraded block. It's the one right above a frame, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And now I've got a wood block selected, and you can see it changed in my edit window to block 220 as the block ID, but it still gives me the block name underneath this damage button. And then I have a color for what that block is going to look like as I paint it on the map. And as you just saw, when I was placing wood blocks, it was all blue. If I decided to place grass, it's going to be gray. So I can come in here, and now I've got grass. I don't want grass, I want wood blocks for my foundation. So choose my wood block right there. So now I can paint in a variety of ways. So if I'm on my edit tool, I can, at the top, I click this little crayon button to go to my edit tool. And I can just left click around, and it places my wood blocks. I already selected my block up here on the top right under the edit tab. I'm just left clicking through. That's great, I can do that. I can also hold my right mouse button and drag, and it'll turn all the blocks that I'm going to end up painting as though they're selected, and I let go of the right mouse button, and there it goes. It fills in everything. Let's get that grid off there. There we go. So I got everything filled in. Now, as you go through and you're doing your editing, one of the things you might want to do is do a deletion. So there's not really a delete feature, so you just want to use air blocks for any deletion. So now I'm going to switch to an air block. I did a search up here and do air and go down to the bottom and choose air so that it's got the right block ID. It's got the block name, and there's no color for air. It's just an empty cell in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and empty this all out. So hold my right mouse button, drag it over, and it's all cleared out. Alternatively, the way I could go about laying my wood floor is I can go wood block. So choose my wood block again. This time I'm going to use the select tool. And I'm going to say, I just want to choose this one block to be wood. And I come over to the right hand side and I can click set all. So whatever I had selected is going to get set as a wood block. Now, maybe I have doors that I wanted to place. Maybe I had zombies that I wanted to place. Whatever the case may be, you can hold the control button down and you can select multiple blocks, and I can have just these blocks set as wood. And that'll set my rotation. So if I have a cash register, maybe I want to place like 6 cash registers, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to have 2 here and 2 cash registers here. Do a search for cash register. We'll do cash register with cash in it. And I'll go ahead and set all. There we go. We got that in. But maybe those aren't the right rotation. So I'll change my editor, change the rotation of that block, and set all again. And now it's properly rotated, all rotated to the rotation 2, because I basically repainted those blocks. If you go to this info tab on the right, you can move your cursor around and you can see what the block current information is that you've painted. So say, for example, I go back to this cash register, go back to my edit window. I still have the cash register selected. I want this one to actually be rotated to 4. We won't get into what the rotations are actually like, what a rotation means. That's a different tutorial probably, but this just means I've rotated the cash registers facing a different way when a player comes in the room or comes onto this floor. So if I go back to my info, I hover over this one. These are all rotation 2 cash registers. You see the block name field at the top right. So over here at the top right, you can see the block name, the block ID, which way it's rotated, some other values, and the texture, how they're painted. But as I come through, these are all rotated 2. But if I go to this one, it's rotated 4. So you do get in a way to identify what's going on your screen. What have I painted? What does it look like? Especially if you want to copy values from somewhere else. We'll get into that in just a minute. But I really want this all to be wood. And so going back to some of the ways that we can do that, go back over to my block ID in the edit window at the top right and go to a wood block. Oops, got to spell it right. Wood block. Click it, select it, so it's got the right block ID, it's got the color all in. So I can go through, left click left click around, have one block selected, turn that one individually into a wood block, hold down my control button, click some blocks, or I can hold my right mouse button on one of these cells and drag it, and I have all these blocks selected. And then I can go over here to the set all button and turn it all wood. And it replaced even my cash register. So it really is repainting, replacing whatever was there. The cash registers are gone. This whole select feature has a range of functionality, so that piggybacks on some of this other stuff. So let's go back to the cash register. Or actually, let's do a toilet. Since this is an outhouse, let's play with toilets. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's make this one a toilet. I'm going to set that one. There's a toilet. You can see that it looks like a chest. Anything that's lootable in the game looks like a chest in the editor. I'm pretty sure that's true for all lootable things. So let's say now that I've gone back to doing my wood blocks. And going over here, and I set this one, and I set that they're already wood blocks, but I've got my wood block already up here. What I really want to do is I want to put in another toilet. I can left click on here on this wood block, and now it's selected, and Control C on my keyboard will copy that. And then I can point my cursor anywhere on my map and do Control V as in Victor, and it'll paste that in. So you've got the ability to copy and paste, and we'll show one more example of how that's really helpful. Right now, we've got our floor in. We had the ability to use the select feature and just click a single block and set all, and it'll set whatever block I've selected. Hold the right mouse button, select multiple blocks, and it selects everything in the middle. You don't get like a square. That would actually be a different one, and we'll show that in a second. And you could set all, and it set my floor. Or you could use the editing tool and do basically the same way of clicking around that I did with the select. Hold right mouse button, and as soon as I let go of the right mouse button, it fills in. So let's go up to the next floor because we want to put in walls. So we use under the select navigator, we can use the rectangle select area. And we can do the set all functionality just the same way we did with the select tool. Right here we're using the select rectangle tool. So I use the select rectangle tool, and I hold my left mouse button and I drag it down, and I'm going to get this area. Now one thing you'll notice is that in the editor, for whatever reason, whenever I come off the map, it can get a little moody. So just to demonstrate this tool, I've got these blocks selected. I don't have the middle block selected, and I don't have the outer row. So I do still have my wood block in my editor going. So I'm going to go ahead and set all, and it just gives me that square. Cool. Now let's say I wanted to fill this area in. I can go over to the edit tool, the edit section, and there is a fill tool that I can click on. And I still have in my edit window the wood block, and I left click right in the middle, and it'll fill right up to the border. Notice it didn't fill along the outsides. There's the undo redo features like in most applications under the edit screen. Control Z to undo, Control Y to redo. So let's say I wanted to undo that fill. Maybe I want to fill in the outside, so I hit the left mouse button. It fully wraps around the corner all the way up to any edges. Fills in kind of empty spaces or like spaces. Probably be the best way of saying that. So I'm going to undo that as well. And this is not how I want my wall, but I can still use the rectangle to get most of it done real quick. So I'm going to get those done, set that, and then I'm just going to do a quick drawing with the edit tool, hold my right mouse button down, and there we go. Cool. So now what I have in place is my foundation on my floor. I just moved down to layer 0, move up 1. That's the first level of my wall, and this is where players' feet would be. They'd be standing, the block below that is the wood block for the foundation, their feet would be on it. I want to bring this wall all the way to the top and get a ceiling in. So I'm going to do the copy paste feature that we talked about. I'm going to use the select tool at the top left, the arrow. I'm going to hold my right mouse button down, drag over the whole area, select everything, and I'm going to Control C. Now I've copied this all, and I'm going to go up 1 layer. Move up 1 layer, got nothing drawn here. You have to be careful when you're pasting things in. Your paste starts where your cursor is. So what I want is this. I want my wall to go up the building. But if, say I just wasn't really paying attention and I did a paste here with Control V, well, my cursor was in the middle of the screen and it didn't put it where I wanted it. That's not right. So you got to be careful where your cursor is when you paste something. But an easy Control Z for undo will fix that bad paste, and I can put my cursor back where it's supposed to be, Control V, and there we go. I've got my next layer up for my wall. So I've got my foundation, layer 0. I go up one. I got the first level of my wall where a player's feet would be. The next level of the wall up on layer 2 would be where a player's head would be. Next layer up is going to be that empty space. So I'm going to go ahead and Control V, paste in another layer of wall, and then now I'm at the ceiling. I can fill this in the same way I did with the floor, but this time I'm just going to go ahead and put in the border. I don't even have to put in the border. I'm just going to go to my fill tool, left click, and fill it in. Voila. Now I have a box. And if I go to my front view, which it didn't update properly, so I need to zoom out and zoom in. There we go. Now it's got the ceiling and the walls, so it's just a box. I want a front door. So on my front view, I'm going to go over here. I'm gonna empty out a couple blocks. I'm gonna leave my foundation and put a couple blocks as air blocks. So in my edit tool, I'm gonna do an air search, pick the air block, block ID 0, go to my edit tool at the top of my screen in the edit section, little crayon, and then just come back down here and right in the middle, I'm gonna left click 2 blocks. And now I replace those with air blocks. They're empty blocks in the game. A player could walk right through here and go straight into the building. Now I'm gonna go back to my top view. And we're going to move down all the way to the foundation and then come up one. Now we can see there's that where the player's feet would be is empty. They can walk right into this room and it's empty. And if I wanted to, I can come over here, find a toilet, and I'm on my edit tool already. Left click over here. Now they have a place to do their poop. Fantastic. Go up one layer, and here is where their head would cross the threshold of the doorway, so they're not going to be bumping their head into the top block or anything like that. They have a nice empty spot to bring their head through. Toilets below this, where their head would be, the toilet is, foot to waist level, that first that block level. And we come up, maybe we'll do some lights in here. Lights. We'll do a ceiling light 1. I don't even know what that one looks like, but we'll do a ceiling light 1. I'm going to just put it right here. I don't know if my rotation's right. And that's one of the challenges that you'll run into with this type of editor. We can cover some tricks to figure that out later on, but rotation tends to be a challenge with this. Don't worry about it right now, but all we need to know is that we got a light right here in that empty gap. And actually, you know what? I don't want this light here. I want this light up here so that we can kind of demonstrate this. And then one of the handy things for doing this type of using tools like this is I can go to this general section, and he's got this tool called a block picker. And basically it copies whatever block I click on and puts it in the edit section. So it updates everything all my edit options with whatever I click on. So right now I'm sitting here on a ceiling light on the top right in the edit tab. I want to be on an air block because I want to delete this block, this light I put in. I don't need 2 lights. I just want the 1 light above the toilet. So I'm going to left click on my air block, and now I'm on an air block. Go back to my edit, and then left click to clear that. Now it's an air block. So basically just deleted that light. So if I go up one more layer, I'm at my ceiling. So go back down to 0, go to the front view, bring it to the 0 layer right to the front. So now we have our gap. A player can walk into the door, walk into the first block of the room, walk up to the toilet. They'll have a light above them. They can sit on the toilet, do their dirty business. Hopefully they flush and walk right on back out. And those are a lot of the basics of using Pile's editor. So hopefully that helps you out. There's a couple things that I didn't really know as I went through here, and hopefully that you won't have the same struggles. So you all have a good one, and take care.